Hi guys, so what we have here are some Antaresia Stimsoni. These are Georgetown locality Stimson's pythons, or large blotched pythons, depending on which name you use. And so these guys are from the Georgetown locality individuals, which sort of, I guess, in terms of identifying it or some of the traits of this locality, it's sort of that's the fella in shed. It's that quite high pattern, so you can see on this individual. So quite a bit of pattern, and then also you get a bit of a pinkish tinge, which the camera's struggling to pick up. But they're also one of the smallest of the Stimson localities, only growing to 70 centimeters in length. So only about 10 centimeters, or longer than a pygmy python. So they're really quite a small species, and in the same family as the pygmy python. But today I thought it's just a good example, because I have two individuals where one of them is in shed, so it's a bit of some of the signs that they're in shed, and so you can sort of see the contrast if you're new to it. So as you can see, the individual, so this is a pair, and as they run away, the individual on the right is the one in shed, so it has that blue tinge over his pattern compared to his girlfriend next to him. Too many things at once I'm trying to do. Sorry about that, guys. The camera just ran out of battery off on me. Anyway, so get back into it. So in terms of that, when they're coming up to shed, they're going to get that bluish tinge to their pattern over what their normal pattern is, and depending on the individual, that'll depend how obvious it is. Like in this young fella here, it's quite an overt display of that bluish tinge, where you'll get in other species not as obvious a change in appearance. But the clouding over the eyes will come and go before he sheds before the skin actually comes off. It's important during these times to keep moisture up, ensure they're drinking and have access to clean water, and ensure that the conditions in the enclosure are right. Georgetown is actually a place in far north Queensland in Australia, so quite a high humidity in that region, and so these guys, although some of the other Stimson's pythons are from more arid regions, these guys are a more tropical form. In terms of how often shedding occurs, shedding is a result of growth. So it's sort of a bit dependent on how fast they're growing, but it is a process that sort of occurs naturally, even if they're not appearing to grow quite significantly. So older snakes that have sort of reached their sort of maximum size are gonna still shed, but it'll be a lot less frequent compared to young guys like these yearlings that'll shed quite frequently as they grow, or at least depending on their intake. So obviously, if you power feed them, they'll shed more frequently because they're sort of growing out of that skin. Lots of information about shedding, so I'll leave it at that, and yeah, hope you've enjoyed this sort of video, getting to see some of the occupants of my collection that don't often come out to play. Anyway, thanks guys.